Welcome to the show today. We have several segments. Our concentration today is on the educational system in Corpus Christi, Texas, and the cost associated with that education system, both in taxpayer dollars and the cost of being the second most illiterate city in America. Welcome to the show. Today is November 18th. We're about a week and a couple days before Thanksgiving. Today we want to look at the economics of Del Mar as they relate to CCISD. Del Mar is incurring costs that are approximately 30% above the average cost of a community college to educate a student. Now, that's because of a number of reasons, one of which is the remedial classes. Apparently, and I've got to investigate this, but apparently approximately 70% of the students entering Del Mar require remedial classes before they can take the normal college education classes. Why is that? They're coming from CCISD. Now, is CCISD doing their job? If they're doing their job, they're educating their students. There are 944 school districts in Texas. CCISD ranks 716th. Now that's the bottom 25%. That's terrible. I'm going to get the budget for CCISD. I know it's huge. Are they doing their job? They're not educating their students. They're transferring, graduating, the ones that do graduate. There's a huge dropout rate. There's a huge amount of GEDs issued in Corpus Christi. The city ranks number 2 as the second most illiterate city in America. Something's wrong. Something's terribly wrong. So CCISD's not performing the job that they have been assigned to perform for an enormous amount of money. Now, the most recent superintendent, Scott Eliff, retired, and it was a front page article in the Colorado Times as if he'd accomplished something. He did accomplish something. They're in the bottom 25% of the school districts in Texas. Now, that's nothing to be proud of, I don't think. It's incurring cost to the taxpayers in the remedial education of those students that actually do go forward to Del Mar College. And Corpus Christi is a city that is in desperate need of a good community college. Now, the cost of the community college is exceedingly high to the taxpayers of Corpus Christi. Nobody else is paying that cost. Let's look at the economics, the macroeconomics. The only people paying taxes are the people of Nueces County. The school district taxes come from property taxes. Whenever they receive a federal grant, where does the federal money come from? The money that's granted to the local school districts or the local community college. It comes only from taxpayers. The federal government, the state government, the local government, none of them have a resource that allows them to create money other than the federal government, which can create it through printing money, which expands the money supply, which creates inflation, which devalues the dollar. So the only real source of funds is the taxpayer, the people that earn money. Now, many people think you can tax the corporations, and you can. Where do the corporations get their money? From the taxpayers. They sell things. The taxpayer is paying the entire bill. Nobody else is paying anything. It's coming directly from the taxpayer. So, to support the local school district, to support the local community college, which are almost 100% taxpayer supported, the tuition at the community college that the students pay is a fraction of what it costs. At Del Mar, it's costing somewhere in excess of $10,000 per year to educate a student. Now, who's paying that money? The student may pay at most 25%. So the taxpayer is picking up at least 75%. And the taxpayer is us. those property taxes that you see at the end of the year on your tax statement, or if they're escrowed on your house note, you need to look at that escrow. What is that dollar amount? It may be several $100s. That probably is. On a $300,000 house, which is not that abnormal, it's going to be somewhere around $700. So $700 a year for community college taxes, plus you're paying for the CCISD taxes, which is going to be a larger amount. Now, what are we getting for that money? We're getting an education level that attains the second most illiterate city in America, and it's not improving. These students have to compete with the rest of America, with the rest of the world. They're not able to do it. Why? Because they're not getting educated. Whose fault is that? I can tell you, it's not the teacher's fault. My family has several teachers in both my generation and the next generation. Those people work hard. First, they worked hard to get their education, then they worked hard at school. That's not an easy job. It's a lot of hours. And they want their students to learn. So where's the failure? The failure's at the administrative level. In CCISD, the administrative level is failing. When you have a school district in the bottom 25%, something's terribly wrong. And I also looked at the property tax for the house that I live in. That is all public information. So this year, I'm paying slightly less than $700 for Del Mar property taxes, and slightly more than $3,000 for CCISD. All the money to fund the colleges comes from taxpayers. Nobody else furnishes money, no matter whether it's a federal grant or a state grant. The money comes from taxpayers. It can come from nowhere else. I'm paying over $3,000 for CCISD taxes. I don't have a child in CCISD. Haven't had for over 5 years. We actually only educated one child through CCISD. She went on to get her college degree at a military academy. So she's done well. Now, was it the result of CCISD? Well, she certainly got educated there. However, it was supplemented by continuing education through private sources every summer, to the tune of several $1,000s each summer. Now, we're paying $3,000. Most taxpayers in Corpus are paying several $1,000s for CCISD. That is our money. Also, any federal grants that come to CCISD are actually coming as a result of taxes that we pay. We all pay income taxes. Those get allocated by the federal government to different entities. CCISD may get a federal grant. That's part of the money that we've already paid in. So once we realize and accept that the only source of financing is the taxpayer in America, then we realize that nothing's free, nothing is supported by the government. Whenever anybody says a government grant, it's actually a grant from us, the taxpayers. So if you're paying $10,000 a year in federal taxes, part of that is being allocated to the local authorities. And that's both city and CCISD. They get grants. Those grants come from us. So once we realize that and accept it, then we understand that we're paying the bill. Nobody else is. And what's the result of, what are we getting for what we pay? Right now, we're currently in the bottom 25% of Texas schools. Now, that's horrible, but it's even worse when you look at the amount of money that's being spent to attain that level of education. It's appalling. Why is that? Well, we're going to have to investigate that. It's wasted money. It's not the teachers. Again, the teachers are working hard. I know some of them. I have family members that teach, not here, but they teach, and they all work hard. They're all dedicated. They don't make a lot of money. My daughter started teaching in Katy, which is a prosperous school district. Her first year, she may have made $47,000, which is a great deal more than Corpus pays. But they're 12-hour days, every day. They're probably 12-hour days here. The students, the demographics may be a little bit better in Katy, they may not. There's a lot of apartments there. The Houston area got a lot of the hurricane victims from Louisiana, so the demographics changed. But the school district, which is a very prominent school district, and their taxes are high as well, they're not in the bottom 25%. What's the difference? There's several differences, but mostly administration. Administrators are not doing the job to raise the level of education of the students. And again, Corpus Christi is the second most illiterate city in America. It continues to be that. We're paying more for the education and getting less. That's a thing that we're going to look at. And we're going to look at the details as to why that's occurring. And we're going to spend a lot of time on it, because that is our money, that is our future. If our children can't read, can't do math, when they graduate from high school, those that do graduate, we've got a horrendous dropout rate. And the GEDs that are issued, Del Mar's spending a lot of money issuing GEDs. What does that get you? I'm not sure. Not a good job. You certainly don't qualify for much with a GED. Thank goodness for the oil patch, which, by the way, always dries up. It's a cycle. It's great, then it's very bad. And right now, oil's dropped 25% in the last 60 days. It's not going to be good. The GED is not going to qualify you for an income, to be able to earn an income that can support a school district that will produce people that can be educated, or that are educated. It's a cycle. We have to be able to break the cycle, or we're condemning our children, the next generation, to illiteracy, which has plagued the city for a decade or longer. Second most illiterate city in America. It's a terrible, terrible title. And drive around the city. I live on the south side. It's reasonably new. If you don't leave the south side, you won't realize how deplorable the conditions are in other parts of the city. The roads are terrible. Even our best roads in the city. Ocean Drive, it's a mess. That's why people drive pickup trucks in this town. If you drive a car, you're going to get beat up. So we've got some severe problems, significant problems, and we're paying the money to resolve them, yet they're not getting resolved. Why is that? We're going to look at that. The costs are high, the results are low. Something's wrong. About the correlation between the cost of education and the production of educated students. There doesn't seem to be a correlation in Corpus. Keep in mind the dropout rate for the high school is incredible. I'm hearing somewhere between 18 and 30%, and I'm trying to find the research through the internet, but it's very difficult because there's a lot of GEDs being issued. And that's driving up the cost of Del Mar education, because the uneducated CCISD students then transfer into Del Mar and take remedial classes to teach them how to read and write and do the arithmetic that they should have learned in college, or in high school. And now the cost is put onto the college. Del Mar has less than 3,000 students. That's about 1% of the population they serve. 3,000 full-time students, 6,000 part-time students, that's about 2%. So there's about 3% of the population going to the Del Mar Community College. Now they've got about 1,350 dual credit students. They don't go to the campus. Those dual credit students are taught in the high schools, normally by a high school teacher. Sometimes a professor will come over there, but they don't go to the campus. So we've got about 3% of the population served by the community college district going to the community college on a regular basis, both full and part-time. That's not a very sizable percentage for the lack of education that's being produced out of CCISD. Now the costs are high, and they're going to remain high because CCISD is not doing their job. So it puts the cost on the Del Mar. It's unfortunate, and Del Mar is totally funded by us, taxpayers. The same taxpayers that pay for the CCISD education also pay for the Del Mar education. The students kick in a little bit in tuition, but not much. It may be 20–25%, but it's not much. It's costing the taxpayers. So we pay for it at the elementary and high school level. They don't get it, so we pay for it again at the college level through remedial courses. And are they getting it there? I don't know. If they're not, and apparently they're not, based on the fact that we're the second highest or second most illiterate city in America, apparently it's not working at the community college level as well. Now keep in mind, what costs are driven up as a result of that? First of all, the students that aren't learning are taking minimum wage jobs. You can't support a family on a minimum wage job. That's an entry-level position. That's not a position to support a family. 2 people at minimum wage, which is about $8 an hour, a little less, $8 an hour, 2 people, $16,000 a year times 2, $32,000 a year for a family. That's, I don't know if that's the poverty level. You certainly can't live on that, and certainly not in Corpus. So we've got the second highest, or second most illiterate city in America. Our high school dropout rate is horrendous. The high school, the CCISD district, is in the bottom 25% of the Texas schools. Del Mar College costs about 30% more to educate each student than the average in the U.S. And how about the crime rate? If you'll notice, there's a correlation. The people you see getting arrested on the 10 o'clock news are not the educated people. They're the people that dropped out of high school, didn't get an education. They're also the ones that are probably on welfare. And drive down the street, go down Staples, down towards downtown. Those are the people that we, the taxpayers, are funding. They did not get an education. They elected not to get one. Now, they had an opportunity. All of them had an opportunity in Corpus. CCISD offers a free education. Del Mar offers a reasonably priced education. And with 3% of the population going there at all times, the population served, somebody should be getting an education. Why do we remain the second most illiterate city in America? Why is the poverty rate so high? Why is the crime rate so high? Why are the taxes so high? The taxes are high because the money isn't being used properly. It's not the teachers, it's the administration. The administration isn't accomplishing the job they're being hired to accomplish. You can't be in the bottom 25% of independent school districts in Texas and think that you've done a good job. The teacher's done a good job. They're working 12 hours a day. They're not getting paid very well. They're not even getting paid well in relation to other cities in Texas. So where's all the money going? Where's all the money going in CCISD? Where's it all going at Del Mar? Now, we've looked at Del Mar. We've looked at their failure to collect accounts receivable and the failure to convert the accounts receivable and writing off these forced entries to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars. Nobody's paid any attention. Nobody seems to care. We've raised it. Channel 6 News has raised it. Nobody cares. Nobody's done anything. Let's look a little bit more at that write-off of this next segment. The financial ratios were off the bell curve. Everything was high at Del Mar. And those ratios have implications. In and of themselves, they don't have much meaning, but they do imply something. They imply that management is not taking care of the business of the college in a proper manner. And when you compare the management of Del Mar to other community colleges in Texas and in America, Del Mar is less efficiently managed than the rest of them, as a general rule. Also, it's costing more money to educate a student at Del Mar than it does the national average. Now, why is that? Well, there's several reasons, and we're going to investigate those in the future. We're going to investigate them in depth. A lot of it, I believe, is related to CCISD. The graduation rate, they've got a high dropout rate. I don't know that it's higher than the national average, but it is a high dropout rate. And the students that are graduating, there's an inordinate percentage of them that can't read above the 4th and 5th grade level. Now, what's that do? How does that affect the taxpayers? Well, first of all, the taxpayers are paying hundreds of millions of dollars every year to CCISD to educate the students. They're not getting that education. What happens when they graduate? They have to take remedial courses to learn how to read, to gain proper math skills so that they can achieve getting a job above the minimum wage level. Keep in mind, Corpus Christi has the second highest illiteracy of any city in America. That's astounding. Let's think about that. Only Bakersfield, California exceeds us. Now, what do we have in common with Bakersfield, California? Oil patch. People go into the oil patch after they drop out of high school and make a lot of money, as long as oil is expensive. When oil goes down in value, as it did in 1986, those people without an education that used to make a lot of money now can't get a job. Now, what have we seen that parallels 1986 in recent weeks? And hopefully it doesn't continue. The price of oil has dropped dramatically. In fact, it's down about $30 a barrel. What's that going to do to the Eagle Ford? Well, Eagle Ford has a high operating cost. When the cost of a barrel of oil goes below the cost to extract it at Eagle Ford, eventually they're going to stop extracting the oil. What's going to happen to all those people that did not get an education in Corpus Christi, that have right now high-paying hourly jobs in the oil patch? They're going to be unemployed, or they're going to Del Mar to take remedial classes and learn how to read so that they can get an education so they don't have to work at Whataburger. What's that going to do to the taxpayers? We're going to have to pay for it. The tuition that the students pay at Del Mar is a fraction of what it costs. As we've seen, it's cost at a high $13,000 per year to educate each student at Del Mar. Currently, they have an $80 million annual budget, $300,000 per day. Students, they quoted about 10,549 students in total this semester. Now that was not an official number. It hasn't been certified yet, but I did get that from the registrar's office. Of that, less than 3,000 of those students are full-time. Approximately 6,000 part-time, and approximately 1,350 dual credit students. The dual credit students normally don't even come to campus. So we've got less than 3,000 full-time students, 6,000 part-time students. So you're talking about less than 9,000 students coming to the Del Mar campus. We currently have 2 campuses. They have approved the bond, which I was stunned, $157 million. And part of that bond is going to evaluate the expansion of the 3rd campus, the Southside campus. Now, That doesn't make any sense with the student count, with the student enrollment trend, but it was overwhelmingly approved by the taxpayers. It doesn't cause me a personal problem. None of it causes me a personal problem. My children are all educated. Two of them have college degrees, and the other one is in his third year at a four-year institution. So they're not going to ever go to Del Mar. The third campus, the Southside campus, is about 2 miles from my subdivision. It's going to increase the property value of my house. Now my taxes will go up, but my property value, because of the proximity of the Southside campus, my property value is going to exceed the increase in taxes. So I'm going to personally benefit from it. I'm still adamantly opposed to it. I'm not looking to benefit in that manner. I don't mind paying the taxes if we were getting the educated students. What I do have a problem with is paying the taxes and not getting the educated students. And that goes back to the financial ratios. So as we look at those ratios, and as we go into the future, I'm going to look at those ratios, how they coordinate with the graduation rates and the scores from CCISD, and we're going to look further into the management of the college. Dr. Sansing and I have been attempting to get information on the bad debt write-offs for over a year. Finally, we got a memo authored by the college controller and written to Tammy McDonald. It was a very recent memo. And in it, the controller simply stated that his general ledger did not equal his subledgers after a conversion in 2010. The difference, coincidentally, was the amount of the bad debt write-off for third party, $185,000. Well, that looks innocent enough on the surface. It's not. It's not at all innocent. That means they had a failed accounts receivable conversion in 2010. What's that mean? That means they converted from one system to another. If you had 10,000 accounts in the earlier system and you did the conversion, you should have 10,000 accounts in the new system. If it said $1 million in receivables in the old system, it would have to read $1 million in the new system. Theirs didn't. They lost accounts. Now, any normal accountant would have stopped at that point and said, we can't complete this, we've got a problem. Apparently, that didn't happen at Del Mar. In fact, the conversion was made, even though it was bad, and then in 2012, a memo from Dr. Sloan to Dr. Escamilla said we're writing off this bad debt expense, third-party bad debt, in the amount of $185,000. It did not mention the failed accounting conversion. And in fact, we didn't find out about the failed accounting conversion until we asked for more and more information. Finally, the information I asked for was the posting log to the subledger. Well, that was a problem for Mr. Johnson, the college controller, because there was no subledger. Those accounts weren't posted to the subledger. Bingo, a big problem was discovered. Now, was it withheld from us? Why do you think we got the $27 million quote? They knew we were getting too close to the information, did not want to disclose it to us, and in fact, didn't disclose it to us until we asked for the exact specific posting that didn't exist. Normal people, not related to accounting, not working for the college, would have no idea to ask for that information. I knew to ask for it because none of this made any sense. For the last almost year and a half, none of their explanations have made a bit of sense. And we've been blocked every step of the way. Why? Because it was a cover-up. They didn't want us to know. We've gotten that information. We forwarded that to KRIS TV. We're sending it to the state controller to see if they'll investigate. We have a real problem here. It's a cover-up of a situation that the college lost accounts receivable, to the best of our knowledge, $185,000 in third-party accounts receivable alone. That does not address the student receivables. So we don't know how big the problem is. We know from Mr. Johnson's memo that they had a huge problem. We know they didn't want us to know about it. We know from Dr. Sloan's explanation at the budget workshop in 2013 that he didn't disclose a bit of that to the Board of Regents. He said it was the increase in student bad debt that was causing the increase in the bad debt write-off. That was partially correct, or it could have been partially correct, but it certainly wasn't the full explanation. Did Dr. Sloan ever make the board or the president aware of the failed conversion that cost $185,000 in third-party receivables alone? How much in total? We don't know. We don't know. Will we ever know? We may. Not because they're going to voluntarily provide us with that information. We're fighting every inch to get that information. And we have to ask specific questions, or we'll get general answers, or no answer at all. One of the things they're really fond of is saying that they've already provided that information, knowing they haven't. Now, they did that to Dr. Sang Sang on several occasions, and they did it to me. When they furnished me with the $27 million quote, I explained what they were doing to the Attorney General. And what a coincidence. Within a day, Ms. McDonald had the information ready for me that she told me had been previously provided, but that she knew full well had not. How did that happen? Well, the Attorney General probably called her. And in fact, the Attorney General has written letters, and I've gotten copies of them. But the information is being withheld from me. Has it been withheld from the Board of Regents? I don't know. I suspect it may have, but I don't know. We're going to try to find out. Now, in the next part of this show, we're going to go over, and I'm going to have slides, and I'm going to have a voiceover on the slides to tell you what they mean and the implications. We're going to investigate this more and more into the future. I want people to understand what the implications are to the students, to the faculty, to the taxpayers. Our students are being shortchanged. Our taxpayers are being overcharged, and our faculty are, in my opinion, being stymied. We need to change that, or we're going to continue to be the second most illiterate city in America. That's nothing to be proud of, and it's costing us money in our uneducated children and in our welfare benefits that we're going to have to provide them for a lifetime because they can't earn a living. The average male salary in Corpus is around $31,000 a year. Well, you look at the taxes, you look at the windstorm insurance, because we're close to the coast, it's expensive to live in Corpus Christi. The housing may not be expensive, but the living expenses are high. You can't live on $31,000. You certainly can't raise a family on $31,000 a year. How do they get around it? Well, drive down Lower Staples, drive down the downtown area. It's despicable. Go to the courthouse. Every town has homeless people. We have a lot of homeless people. We have a lot of abandoned property. The streets are horrible. That's not Del Mar's problem. That's the taxpayers' problem, to the tune of probably $2 billion. We're going to address all this in the future. I want everyone to understand what I'm looking at and realize that I'm looking at it to see if we can fix it, to see if the taxpayers can have some sort of relief, if the students can benefit from it, and if we can turn Del Mar around, and it needs turned around, if we can turn it around to be the college that it once was. This is an example of a community that needs a community college. We've got very poor educational system in the high school. Somebody's got to pick up the slack, or we're going to be paying taxes and watching our children be in welfare lines for the rest of their lives. I see that as a big problem. So let's address these slides now. Thank you. We are currently looking at a memo from the college controller, Mr. Johnson, to Miss Tammy McDonald in response to a PIA request that I'd sent in uh, addressing the detail posting logs for accounts receivable subledgers. Now, what that means is if somebody owes the college money, there should be a subledger that identifies each account that is owed and each invoice on that account. This memo indicates that, in fact, the $185,000 of third-party bad debt does not have a supporting general ledger subledger. So, the general ledger is out of balance with the subledger. Why would that occur? Well, in this case, Mr. Johnson appears to be indicating that they had a conversion of the accounts receivable system in the year 2010. And during that conversion, it appears they lost $185,000 of detail. Now, that can happen, but most people with an accounting degree would stop at that point and not proceed. It appears that was not the case with Del Mar College. The memo appears to indicate that they proceeded on after a failed conversion. So they failed in their accounting conversion. They lost, apparently, $185,000 in third-party receivables. Then, in 2012, a memo, which we'll be following, it was written by Dr. Sloan to Dr. Escamilla saying we had third-party bad debt in the amount of $185,000. This same figure that was uncollectible. Well, it appears to be a forced entry, and we've done a lot of research on it. It appears that a segment of the entry was actually collected based on all the records we've gotten from Del Mar. So why was the $185,000 written off as bad debt? It looks to be a forced entry. Now, that's a significant internal control problem, in my view. And I've been around accounting for over 3 decades. I have an undergraduate degree in it. I have a master's degree in it. I am a CPA. I've been around accounting a long time, and I've seen this happen on 2 other occasions. Both times, a non-accountant was in charge of the conversion, and therefore, they didn't see any problem going forward out of balance. Well, it was a big problem in both those cases, and it cost the company or the entity several $100,000 in each case, and it also cost the financial director their jobs. These 2 documents are actually the detailed support for the bad debt in the amount of $54,000 that was written off by Del Mar in 2012. It is a component of the difference between the general ledger and the detailed subledger in the amount of $185,000. These documents indicate that these students took courses at Texas A&M Kingsville that were taught by what we've been told is professors from Del Mar. These were apparently remedial courses. Texas A&M Kingsville had agreed to pay these amounts to Del Mar for having their instructors come down to Texas A&M to teach these courses. According to these documents, no amounts were ever paid. We have filed a PIA request to Texas A&M Kingsville for any checks written related to these documents. We're awaiting that PIA response. These documents were a component of a Channel 6 investigation where the financial officer for Kingsville said no invoice had ever been received from Del Mar. We're waiting for the results of our PIA request. We are now looking at the memo from Dr. Sloan to Dr. Escamilla in 2012, where Dr. Sloan is requesting authorization to write off as bad debt the $185,000 third-party bad debt. Now, this is, in fact, the amount that is the difference between the general ledger and the subledger. However, Dr. Sloan's memo is supported by detail. The detail is what appears to be the support for the bad debt write-off. That would be these people that had not paid their debt, despite the fact that the memo indicates they had not paid. We have done research on some of these receivables and found, in fact, that Verizon appears to have paid. And then Kingsville was the subject of a Channel 6 investigation. Their finance officer, Texas A&M Kingsville, their financial officer said they've never received an invoice, so they couldn't have paid it. We're waiting on more responses for PIA requests to see what actually happened here. This appears, or it has every appearance of being a forced entry.
At the last board meeting, they were talking about more remedial courses.
That sort of entry
So somebody, and it's essential, somebody's got to teach these people how to read. As an example, without a high school diploma, if you're 60 to 64 years old, your average salary is $27,000. With an associate's degree, it's $48,000.
Right.
Okay, you can live on $48,000.
Yeah.
People can live on that. People can't live on $27,000.
Right.
So that means we're going to have to subsidize those people with food stamps, some sort of welfare. They cannot make a living like that. So it's essential for us to have a good university or good community college that will make up the deficit that has been created by graduating students that can't read. In addition to that, we should have a strong community college. We're paying for it. We're already paying a third more than the average U.S. college. So we should have a strong college. That strong college is defined by the professors. It's not defined by the good administration. Nobody cares about the administration. They should just be administering, issuing checks, balancing the books, filing reports. The teachers are what make the college. And the teachers should have academic freedom. They should be able to exercise the shared governance. That's part of being a professor. The tenure track professors, they need to be there. The tenure track was originally developed because of academic freedom. It was a source of academic freedom. And we need that. We need to attract good professors. We don't need to save our money in hiring lesser qualified people. It's nice that they want to teach. Let's hire the ones that are already qualified to teach and will become part of the community. Somebody that's going to be there for years. Jerry, you've been there for 25 years. That's what we want. Somebody that's got a PhD in the field, a master's degree, they're tenure track, they're focused only on that. They're not going down to the ship channel and working during the day and then coming here and teaching at night. This is not a place for part-time professors. It's a nice thing to do when you have somewhere like Houston, you've got NASA there, and those people have PhDs and they want to teach part-time. That makes sense. Here, we need to attract the PhDs, the masters where you don't have PhDs, the terminal degrees. The school has to be firmed up so that it's addressing what the city needs. The city doesn't need more empty facilities. It doesn't need to we don't need to raise the taxes to maintain an administrative dynasty over there for anybody. Again, Harvard's known as for their professors. Nobody knows about any of the administrators over Harvard. They take care of their work, and that's great. That's what they were trained to do. It's a not-for-profit. We don't need to build dynasties. There aren't that many employees. We don't need to be advertising $1 million a year. Why should we be 3 times the average in advertising? That doesn't make any sense to me. And when you look at the declining enrollment, it doesn't appear to be working either.
No.
Right.
No. Well, how many people in Nueces County, Texas, including Corpus Christi, and include the north of us here? We've got San Pat, Aransas, Refugio counties. How many residents truly do not know that we have Delmar College in the neighborhood?
And they all know it. Now you're very seldom gonna get anybody from outside the area to come in because they've gotta pay a higher tuition rate.
Right.
So your advertising's focused here on the people that already know it.
Mhm.
That's preaching to the choir. They're already totally aware of it. And do we need the $1 million? We need to keep the $1 million at Del Mar, shift it over to teaching, hire more qualified people, treat them better so that they stay. We don't want to be running off people like Dr. Olson. You get a man with that sort of integrity, a colonel in the Army, a PhD in history, you want to keep him.
And then they get crossways and stuff. That's what amazes me. I'll just say it, so you'll know. Well, you already know as a prospective Board of Regents members. You know why I'm not gone. It just baffles me that happened. Well, there are a lot of questions that need to be answered. I think that you had said something a minute ago that triggered it in me that I say on my TV shows all the time. This administration that is bloated at Del Mar College, and the only purpose that an administrator and an administrator has at Del Mar College working for the taxpayers is to provide the faculty members, me, with what I need to present the best education to students. That's it. I mean, that's the bottom line. I don't know your bottom line, or, you know, if you want to comment. That's the only reason we
Your only product's the diplomas. Educate those kids.
That's right.
And give them, provide the education, don't give them the grade.
Right, or the backbone. If you've got it.
When they say, you gave me a C, no, you earned your C.
That's right.
Now, let them earn the A's. I was talking to a student today, she wants to work harder. She wants to excel. That's the kind of students we need, and that's what we should be providing. We shouldn't be watering it down. Nothing should be watered down. That diploma's got to be worth something when they leave. If the word around town is we can't hire Del Mar people because they don't know anything, that diploma's useless.
Right. And then we get on faculty members that hold the line and do demand, you know, the proper performance by students, and that they are chastised, and even worse than that. I won't get into that tonight.
But by the way, Doctor, that budget's a little more than $300,000 per business day. And somebody needs to really be looking at that hard. And if the administration isn't qualified to look at it hard, and I'm saying I've seen Dr. Stone's resume, and he's not qualified to be looking at this stuff. I'm sure he's trying, and he gets up there and makes a nice presentation, but somebody needs to look at it, which is what I was trying to do.
Right.
Now, as a board member, if I've got access to that information, I'm going to be working and looking at that stuff. And I think they all should be doing that now, even if they don't understand it. And I can tell you right now, some of them don't understand it.
Well, you know, I just hope that as a board member, if you are elected to that board, that they will pay you enough money and salary to be able to afford $27 million to go out and obtain.
I believe they need a salary of zero.
But you get a free lunch.
Yeah.
And I saw the bill for that too. That was about $50,000-$60,000 a year.
They do eat well.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe you can just say, no, thank you. I don't want that expensive meal. And I sure hope that you don't show up to a board meeting with Bermuda shorts and flip flops on.
I would not. I have watched the dress code over there, and
Your shirt tail out.
I don't dress like that. I certainly don't go out in public like that. There's nothing wrong with a business suit. Most of those people are in business, and they probably have business suits.
Well, there's nothing better than to see a board member who's in charge sitting there stuffing his face with a free pizza, with his eyesore shirt out, hanging out at the top of his Bermuda shorts. I'll just leave it at that.
And they televise it.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Anyway, is there anything else you'd like to add now that we're being totally honest about
Well,
what needs to be done?
what I do want to say is that has been a fine college in the past. a fine college. They've got some wonderfully staffed departments over there. The music department, I went to a presentation of the music department put on. Those people are first class. Your department's first class, history's first class. Let's make all departments first class because we're paying for it anyway.
That's right.
Let's decrease administrative expenses, sue the people that actually owe us money if those are the people. There seems to be some confusion as to whether Kingsville owed any money or not. They don't think so. Sue the people that owe money. Let's exercise our fiduciary responsibility. Let's watch out for the taxpayers' money. If you're not going to give us the detail, then you take care of it. If you can't take care of it, then resign.
Well, I thank you for answering the questions.
Okay, we've prepared some graphs. This shows the debt per student. As you can see, we go down the list. We start with the lowest debt per student is Ranger at 0. Then we progress forward, $147 per student. Now, as we go down, you can see it progressively gets much larger until we find Delmar at $9,899 per student. Now, there are clearly some with more debt per student than Delmar, just a handful. But please notice that if we were going to include the $157 million bond, it would be another $7,000 higher than the highest one on here. And if we were to include the $287 million additional bond that was initially proposed, it would be completely off the chart. Right now we peak at under $20,000 per student. With the current bond issue, it will exceed the $23,000 per student. At the initial $287 million, it would have been approximately $38,000, maybe $37,000 per student with the current enrollment. That's completely off the chart. No one else even approaches that level. Now, let's look at another chart here. This is the tax rate per student. The tax rate of the college district. You notice how we start low and go high. If we look at the colleges that are listed, they start very low, 0.011, and they incline until we reach way down here at the bottom, Delmar, 0.258. There are two of them that are in excess of the 0.258, so that puts Delmar at the very top of the tax rate, 258, almost the highest. In this case, it's the third highest. Now, if we look at the number of students increase, the enrollment increase from 2003 to 2012, we see Delmar had a decrease of 6.6%. Let's see how the rest of the colleges fared. Texas Southmost, I believe they got taken over by University of Texas Pan Am. So there's probably a pretty good explanation for that. There's some others that had decreases, but as you can see, most of the colleges in Texas had increases. So, Delmar is off the charts for debt per student, at the very high end of the chart for tax rates, at the low end of the chart for increase in students since 2003, between 2003 and 2012. It actually had a decrease. whereas most colleges had an increase, and some had substantial increases. And that makes sense. There are more people going to college. So, all of these figures, when you look at the statistics, all the statistics taken together indicate that Del Mar is one of the least efficiently run colleges, community colleges in Texas. And these are the numbers. These are all historical numbers. They're indicating one thing, and that is inefficiency.